Okay, we are live. Welcome, Lieutenant Governor Stratton. I am so thrilled to have you on Demfluenced. Welcome, everyone. My name is Liz Manella. I'm a Demfluencer, a new media strategist, a fundraiser, a very big fan of our Lieutenant Governor, who is also running for United States Senate in the great state of Illinois. I'm so happy to have you here, Juliana.
Hi, Liz. So glad to be here and Happy New Year to you and everyone.
Year. Happy New Year. It's like, what a start to the new year we've had.
Yeah, it's every morning there's something new.
And in particular, I mean, all of the news that came out over the weekend was a lot to process. Today is a lot to process. It feels extremely heavy, extremely discouraging. And I'm very happy to have this conversation with you today. I always leave conversations with you feeling hopeful, feeling like there is so much to look forward to. So I'm just like really happy to have you as my emotional support through January 6th today.
Well, well, I'm glad to be here, and I think anytime we can be in community with one another on heavy days like this, it matters. We need the power that comes from the collective, and glad to be here with you and everyone else who will be tuning in.
Amazing. So, for anyone that has not followed your story or is new to the Stratton train, a train that I have been on for many years, we first met passing gun violence prevention legislation, which we are coming up on the third anniversary of passing the Protect Illinois Communities Act, which, among other things, banned assault weapons in the state of Illinois, was a huge accomplishment of the Pritzker Stratton administration. But to take us back even further, can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to run for office, when you first ran, and what that kind of springboard into this type of work was like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have always had, a great example of public service in my own home. My dad was a Navy veteran and a community doctor. My mom was a public school teacher. So I always kind of grew up knowing that we give back to our community, we serve our community, we care for our community. But I can tell you that it was actually caring for my mother 10 years ago, 2015 to 2016, that my mother had Alzheimer's. I was her primary caregiver. And it was a time when I was watching the news and I saw that my state representative at the time was trying to strip away health care from seniors like my mother. And he was working with our previous governor here in Illinois to do that. And so I got really angry and I yelled at the television, Liz. I said, somebody should run against my state representative. And I didn't know it was going to be me, but it did turn out to be me because I saw a real need for leadership. I saw a real need for someone who was going to fight for those who were the most vulnerable and who wasn't just going to sit on the sidelines as we saw, this type of devastating action take place. And so I stepped up to run for office, and I beat a 13-year incumbent, and who outspent me 2-1. And I lost my mom the day before I launched that campaign. But I can tell you, I have never, ever forgotten my why. I've never forgotten that my entree into public service at the elected level, at least for the state, came from just seeing someone who was trying to cause real harm and damage to our communities, and I said, I see a need and I'm going to step up to meet that need. It is the same thing that has happened with me running for United States Senate. I mean, look at what's happening in Washington. There's a need, and I'm stepping up to meet that need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that explains so clearly why this is your moment. And I think there are so many people with whom this story resonates. This is the sandwich generation, right? That is caring for kids and caring for parents. And I think there are so many people every day that feel checked out of our political system because they don't have time to follow it, because the average woman in this country has 2.5 jobs, and that does not count the domestic labor and taking care of children and taking care of parents. And people are
Yep.
just at their absolute limit, and we just keep piling on, right? They just keep
Mhm.
getting rid of the ACA subsidies, taking away Medicare and Medicaid. It just feels like extremely hopeless, and it feels like we're drinking from a fire hose of
Mm.
bad news. And it feels really hopeful when there's somebody who's like, I'm just like you. I felt the same things and I stepped up and I did something. It's really, really inspiring.
I love that you say that because sometimes there's this tendency to want to just for people to wag their fingers at, just general, just people, their community members, their neighbors to say, look, you're not paying attention. People are trying to make it. People are getting up every day and trying to do the very best that they can. And the honest to goodness truth is that we should have the kind of government where that people are working on your behalf. That's the kind of leader that I always have aspired to be and that I have been and that I will be in the Senate. It's not that everybody should have to pay attention to every single detail every single day. It's that you should check in when you can, but recognize that even if I am busy caring for my children or caring for my parents or working 2.5 jobs, whatever else is happening, I know that I have leaders who are representing me who are going to look out for my best interest. And unfortunately, we've just seen too many leaders who haven't done that, which is why so many people have lost their trust and faith in our system. So um, I want to be that kind of leader that brings my personal experience. I know what it's like
Mhm.
to care for my mother while I'm caring for my daughters. I have 4 daughters, by the way. It's not easy, and I was working full time and juggling so much. But I'm honored to be in a position where I can run and take the voices of those same people who are doing what I did for so many years with me to Washington.
How, and then I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent. How do you balance and do this? I swear I look at people like you, people that are doing so you have a job, very important job of being the lieutenant governor of the state. As I'm working with a coalition working to pass more gun violence prevention bills, I see how much work you are doing with your day job and all of the different competing interests to work for the state of Illinois. You're running this campaign. You have 4 children. You were taking care of your father. I just, my heart goes out to you, who you lost earlier this year. It's a lot. Like, how are you doing?
You know what? I am doing really well in spite of all of that. I see so many people who are doing the same things in their own ways. And I always say, it might not look the same as the person next to me or the person across the street, but we are all juggling. We are all trying to find our way through a time that for so many is really scary. Things are so expensive right now. People are feeling overwhelmed. And we have a president in Washington and his, you know, lackeys who are just making it worse for people. And so, you know what I get motivated by, Liz, is that not that it's easy, but what I know is that every single day I wake up thinking, how am I going to do my part today?
Yeah.
How am I going to get up and try to make someone else's life better? How am I going to, on this campaign for United States Senate, listen to the people and come up with a plan to give the people what they want? That is what this campaign is about. And it's people powered, it's grassroots, it is about taking the voices of the people to Washington because that's what people deserve. So I'm not ever going to say it's just easy,
Yeah.
but what I will say is I am inspired by so many people who are taking to the streets to protect their neighbors, people who are doing whatever they can to make sure that the children in their community are safe, the moms who, like me, have juggled so much, but say, you know what, I'm going to keep going because the next generation deserves to inherit a world that's better than the one we have right now.
Yeah. And that motivation and seeing the difference that you can make is very rewarding. But, as we started this and we were kind of talking about the heaviness of today, um, it feels like when we're looking back at that footage, it feels like in so many ways they won. That so many people looked at that and that it wasn't just disqualifying. We elected this person again. We lost seats in the House. We lost seats in the Senate. we're looking to November and to this hopeful, like I really am thinking a year from now we're going to be watching you get sworn in. We're going to have this new bold, robust blue wave in Congress. But do you ever have days where you feel hopeless? Do you ever feel like you want to just bury your head in the sand? I feel like at least once a week I'm
Mhm.
like I want to quit. I'm done. Do you ever feel like that?
I don't want to sound like I'm like not a human being. I mean, I'm clearly a human being, and some days are definitely harder than others. Some day, you know what the feeling I have more than just feeling like I want to bury my head for me, it's just like I ask the question at least once a week, what world are we living in? Like,
Yeah.
what is this? Like this weekend,
Fine.
I'm like, I have to pause for a moment and say, what is this? What world are we living in? But you probably have heard me shared. You mentioned my dad, who I lost just this past November, and I've shared the story many times about how my father, Henry, who we lost at 92 years old, an amazing man, who marched from Selma to Montgomery way back in 1965. And he talked about how it was, you know, he wasn't sure. He had never done anything like this, but he just wanted to stand up and be counted. And so he decided to march alongside John Lewis and others. And he told this whole story and wrote an essay about this experience of marching to protest voting discrimination. People saying that Black people could not vote in this country. And he stood up and he marched, and he had never done anything like that again. And as I said, when he was asked, why did you do that? He said, because I wanted to stand up and be counted. And I think that is what I think about every single day. I don't know what tomorrow may bring. I don't know what craziness is going to come out of Washington and the chaos. I don't know how much more they're going to try to take out vengeance on people and do whatever they're doing. But what I do know is that just like my dad didn't know what the future might hold, I have to do something.
Got to be there.
And so I got to do it. And so I get up and I do it. So no, I'm not somebody that doesn't feel what everybody else is feeling. I do. I'm human too.
Yeah.
But something, maybe it's the spirit of Henry Wiggins Jr., who is just in me and reminds me that we can make a difference. I'm seeing it certainly with it, look at what's happened with ICE in our communities. You talk about people being afraid and feeling hopeless, and yet look at all the moms
Yeah.
who got up and got their red whistles and hit to the streets and were like, not on our watch.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think we are.
Who would never, I think, have ever pictured themselves doing something like that. And I had a friend who lives in Rogers Park tell me that she had a neighbor who had maybe made comments about my friend and her wife and their family, that she was praying for them, things like that. And so she just always but she was always a nice neighbor, would always kind of do anything if somebody needed something. And when ICE came to their block, that woman was out on the street blowing her whistle saying, no, this is,
Yes.
this is not right. You are taking, and I was like, that really struck me that this is uniting people, which is the exact opposite of what they wanted. They wanted to divide us. They wanted us to feel scared. They wanted people to not show up for elections, and they wanted us to feel hopeless. And it's the exact opposite. But it has been a very dark time for our city. Are you concerned? And you've done incredible job of showing. Of kind of like hitting all the things. You've been there on the streets. You've been there with like the legislation and the protection and and showing up in a legal way. You've shown up, in the national media to talk about this and to bring attention. Are you concerned about what the spring is going to hold for our city? Like, will there be
Always
that?
concerned. Yeah, I'm always concerned. I mean, this president, um, he's not making decisions as the leader of this country should make decisions that is rational and reasonable and thoughtful. He kind of flies off the handle. He, as I said before, is vengeful. And, he has a narrative and he also has an agenda. Remember, none of this is about safer communities. Remember what this president said? I am going after the quote unquote worst of the worst. And what he has done is he's gone after uh, tamale vendors on the street. He's gone after childcare workers. He has separated families. I think we saw there was some statistic about, I think 60% or more had no type of criminal record whatsoever, let alone the worst of the worst. Right. So the whole goal of this president was to make sure that people felt the fear, that people feel hopeless. And that's why I really see our hope when we can still hold on to it in the midst of all of this. To me, that is a part of our resistance. It is a part of our saying, no, you are not going to get this. And I think that he, of course, wants to make the presence of the military on American soil normalized. Yeah. And so when people step up, when that woman that you spoke of, your friend's neighbor, who came out and unexpectedly and had her whistle and said, not here, that is what I look to say, when we come together, there's not a force that can break us. When we decide we're going to stand up for our neighbors and we're going to come up and we're not going to let him get away. And I'm proud of Chicago and the state of Illinois for how we have stood strong. And so, but, he makes threats. I'm going to be back. I'm going to do this. We saw Greg Bovino back in Chicago just 2 weeks ago, and I was called by one of the community groups and had to go out to a school where students needed safe passage. So we don't know what he's going to do. But what I do know is that we have made it clear that here in Illinois, we're going to stand up, and Governor Pritzker and I have made it abundantly clear. We're going to do everything we can to protect our people.
I'm so proud of our state, of our city, of our elected officials. I think everybody always references that in The Handmaid's Tale, Chicago never fell to Gilead. They stayed fighting. That was always referenced in the book and the show, that you could go to Chicago and fight in the resistance. And it's times like that where I'm yeah,
that's who we are. It's who we are. And we're going to keep showing up over and over again.
Right. It is really encouraging to see this response and to see everyday members of our community. And I think it brings people into this movement and gets them paying attention to things like the primaries. So I think there are a lot of people who were activated for the first time, who are out there blowing a whistle, that maybe never voted in a primary before, never voted in a Democratic primary in Illinois, just knew that they lived in a place where the Democrat was probably going to win. Maybe they voted for them in November, but to remember to go to the polls in March in Chicago or Illinois when it's cold, is maybe not something that was on somebody's radar, especially I think the under 45 crowd. We haven't had a lot of statewide elections and a lot of Democratic primaries. We've had senators that stay in these seats for a very long time, so we just haven't had that muscle memory. So this is such an important and powerful time in Illinois politics. And I really want to kind of talk about the importance of primaries, the distinction between you and your opponents, and then really the most important thing that I feel at this time, especially, people forget about our elected officials is that they are legislators, that they are supposed to be writing and passing laws, which isn't something we do a lot of, unfortunately, in our stalemate in Congress. But I want to get into some of your legislative priorities and because I know that we don't have, we will still have a president who would veto anything we would do, but bills and good legislation takes years, if not decades, to pass. So let's start with primary opponents. What is kind of your distinction between you and the other two frontrunners in the race, and how are your priorities different? What sets you apart, and why are you the person that, as we are paying more attention to primaries, that we should be giving our vote, our money, our time, our effort to?
Sure. Well, first of all, I do want to just say to everyone, just to level set, the primary is March 17th in Illinois. So it is coming up soon. And, and yep. And what I always say too is that you are 100% right that people can feel like, well, it's a primary. We're in Illinois. Doesn't matter. We're probably going to elect a Democrat. And what I always say is that it's not just that we have a seat that is open now with the retirement of Senator Dick Durbin. It matters who's in the seat. It matters who's in the seat. And I think right now, what people are really focused on is, do I want the status quo where things just keep going as they have been in Washington, D.C., or am I looking for bold new leadership? Am I looking for people who are going to bring the energy that meets this moment in history? And I can tell you that when I go around the state and talk to people and ask them, tell me about the issue that matters, because to me, my role is to bring your voices with me to Washington, not to come up with Juliana Stratton's agenda, but to base the agenda based on what you tell me. And I can tell you that even though people have lots of ideas, more than anything else, Liz, they say, I'm looking for someone who will go to the mat fighting for me. They're looking for someone who is going to bring the kind of energy that this moment requires. And I think that is the biggest number one distinction before I even get to policy, is bringing new perspective, new ideas, not saying we just want the sort of go along to get along. I'm here, and because I've been here, I should stay here. No, that is not acceptable for the people. This is about bringing the kind of perspectives and ideas and fight that people need right now. I think up to kind of get more into policy, I do want to make sure people understand that number one, I'm the only candidate in this race that's not accepting any corporate PAC money. Why is that important? Because one of the reasons why people kind of check out and get disengaged is because they feel like corporate special interests get so much attention. They get rewarded in Washington, D.C. And that DC politicians really give that special sort of red carpet to those who, the corporate PACs that donate to their campaign. I made the decision, and it doesn't make my campaign easier, by the way. I want everybody to know it doesn't make it easier, but it was the right thing to do because I want to center the voices of the people, the needs of the people, and not corporate special interests. And by the way, when we talk about corporate special interests, we know that I have my main opponent has taken tens of thousands of dollars from the CTO from a company that is helping to push forward the terror that ICE is committing on our communities, um, from people who have been the architects of Project 2025, from those that are helping to fund this golden ballroom that Donald Trump is trying to build. How do you stand up and fight against Donald Trump when you're taking money from the very same people who are propping up his authoritarian agenda?
Yeah. And what bothered me so much about that was not just doing it, but the response. So for anyone that has been living under a rock for the last 4 weeks and didn't see the headlines that Raj Krishnamurthy has very concerning donors, was his response was, I'll just give the money back.
Well, his first response, Liz, sorry to interrupt, but his first one was, I'll take money from anybody who supports my mission.
And then he said,
well, if your mission is to terrorize communities or your mission is to just help Donald Trump advance his agenda, we don't need that in Illinois.
And it was such a brush off, and it was such a small percentage of the overall money. And then what really concerned me was this idea, okay, well, I'll just give it back. That CTO of Palantir that you referenced has been maxing out to him for almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a person who, coming from, I got my start in politics and fundraising, a person that is maxing out to a candidate for a decade is a very, very important person to that candidate, that they're counted on, not just for that check, but they get checks from their friends. They host fundraisers. And yeah, when that guy calls and needs something, when that guy calls and needs you to not vote against a bill that funds Palantir to be even more of a nanny state against us, you're
Yeah.
taking a call. You're not making the vote. Like, the damage has been done. You've given the money back, but that is an established relationship. And from a Democrat from Illinois, it's just, it can't happen. It cannot
Yeah.
happen. We can't let it
Yeah.
happen.
Yep. So that is the kind of when I talk about distinction, that is an important distinction to bring up. And I also just want to bring up, I come to this race with a real record of what I've been able to get done for the people of Illinois. I started as a state rep. I passed 10 bills that got signed into law, things like ending preschool expulsion, making sure that we ended school based booking stations. I went to the partner with Governor J.B. Pritzker as his running mate. And in Illinois, look at what we've been able to do. We've raised the minimum wage, created thousands of jobs, 7 consecutive balanced budgets, common sense gun legislation such as the assault weapons ban, putting Illinois on a path to a clean energy future. These aren't things that we say, I want to just talk about them. We've gotten them done. And these are big things. And I'm sorry, how did I miss? Of course, protected women's reproductive freedom, making Illinois an island in the Midwest for reproductive rights. So these are things that we've done. So this is the blueprint that I want to take to Washington, D.C. I'm not coming to this as somebody who hasn't been a part of helping to move this state forward. And I think everyone should look at the records and say, well, what have you gotten done? You want to stay here? Well, tell me what you've gotten done. And I can tell you, if you've only passed 4 bills that are really around renaming post offices, that's not really going to demonstrate that you are bringing the fight that's needed to get things done for the people of Illinois.
Absolutely. And it's that like deep knowledge of knowing how when I came into this, I learned so much about how a bill becomes a law. Spoiler alert, it's more than that Schoolhouse Rock song. There is so much that goes into the working groups, the teams of lawyers, like how a bill is crafted so that it doesn't get overturned, especially when it's something like gun violence prevention or repro or something that we know that the other side and special interests are going to actively sue year after year after year to try to get overturned. And watching you be a part of that and having that intimate knowledge of how this is going to happen. And then, by the way, everybody goes, oh, Illinois is such a safe blue state. Our state legislature is a bit of a pickle to get things passed, even with a Democratic supermajority. It is not like a rubber stamp, the House and Senate just do whatever the governor and the LG want. No, no, no. It is truly kind of the way our 3 branches of government are meant to work together. So I
That's
think
right.
you having that experience of working with our state legislature is going to equip you so well to actually go get things done. Um,
Yeah.
I will
I
say,
should mention, by the way, that my background is as a mediator. For 20 years of my career, what I did was bring people from different perspectives or opposite sides to the table to help them solve those problems. That was my job for 20 years. And so I did that at all different levels of government, and it has served me very well as an elected, by the way.
it shows absolutely. I know we're almost at time, so as we're wrapping up, I just wanted to kind of ask you one more question about kind of getting to Washington and feeling like we're in this place where the status quo isn't working, our leadership isn't working. What does that look like in practice? Like getting somebody else in Senate leadership, and how would you hope to be a part of that?
Well, I'm already a part of it because I'm the only candidate in this race who has made it very clear that I believe that we need new leadership in the Senate. And I have made that very clear that I would not vote for Senator Schumer as leader. And I think that that's really important, that people are not looking for the status quo. I'm surprised that my opponents have not made that same declaration, because if we want to move from the status quo where people see the same old happening over and over again, then we need to at least in this race as candidates for the United States Senate be ready and prepared to say, when I get to the Senate, I am going to make sure that I push for new leadership. I believe we can win, certainly take over the House, and I believe that we can win the Senate back as well. And when we get to that point, that's when we will make the decision of what does that look like. but at the very least, we should be calling for new leadership because that's what I'm hearing that people are looking for.
Absolutely. How can people get involved? It feels like we've got this Goliath of dark money and being like pummeled with commercials, but this is not what the people of Illinois want. We want people to know you. We want to help. How can people get involved in this campaign?
Thank you for that question. And let me just say this campaign is about the people. It's a grassroots effort, it's people powered. And as I said before, it's about giving the people what they want. And if you want to join me on this journey, please do. We welcome you to join Team Juliana. You can go to my website at julianastratton.com and sign up. You can certainly donate at any amount. If you have $5 that you can send to my campaign, please do so. Every single dollar matters. If you want to, please follow me on social media on, I mean, all of the channels from TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever it is. Follow me and see what we're up to, and sign up to volunteer. We are in the home stretch, and it would mean a lot to have you on the team.
Amazing. And just remember for everyone watching this, like you are empowered to go out there, to talk to your friends and neighbors, to have a Zoom and ask Juliana to jump on, to organize something in your community and talk about the people that are running for this race and draw these distinctions. Like go out there and make this we are giving you the baton. We are giving you the permission to go out there and spread the good word of Juliana Stratton. So I so appreciate you spending this time with me. It was a great therapy session. I knew you would make me feel better. I always love hearing about your inspiration and the kind of soul and just like the things that your parents instilled in you really come through. It's a clear distinction in this race how much passion and realness you have, and that this is something that means a lot to you. And I think that this is, at the end of the day, it used to be this thing like, what politician do you want to have a beer with? What politician do you really believe is going to give a crap about you? And I think that you have that in spades. So appreciate you being with us, and I can't wait to see you out there on the campaign trail.
Well, thank you. And I can't wait to have that beer. Thanks, Liz, and thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.